there's one that sticks out in my mind, that it's just there very vividly. It was Op Simpson, and the details of that. There was like this. We'd been watching. There was two guys that we figured were in this place, and based on our video, and they were strategic about coming in and out of this little building, and we hit it, and it was immediate, where we had one squad that was coming up, a second squad was coming up to the house, and there was a guy in a flatbed truck with a vest on, and he sat up and he popped himself off, and
you watched it.
What's that?
You saw it?
I was running toward the house. We had landed. I was with first squad, and we were coming toward the front door, and second squad, it just it looked like it erased them, And I'm just waiting to hear like fucking the call for the medic on the radio, and it was like that, like perfect silence for that split second after the explosion. It was like you're just waiting for it, and then the eruption happened, where they had somebody, with a belt fed oriented on the door. So when first squad got to the door, they opened up on that. One of the new guys took a round at the helmet, sort of thing, and it was like fucking on. It was full on, grenade fight, and there was 10 guys inside the house. They had strategically only had 2 guys going out at any given time ever, because they knew they were, being watched. With the eye in the sky there, and like it was on.
What was the length of time that entire fucking firefight took place?
So that's the thing about like flow state, right? Is that time kind of becomes distorted. So like I can like the things that were happening there to me really kind of felt slow motion-y. And it could have been, so there were squirters, a couple of them took off, and so the actual, like the meat of the firefight, maybe 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like the violence of action was pretty precise. And, once the grenades started getting thrown, it was done. And like we outnumbered them, 3-1, and you're better at that than they were, apparently,
How did it lead up to that? I mean, like, what was the objective originally? You said it was Operation Simpson. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the name of it, and it was just we had intel on foreign fighters there, who were, that was the thing at the time, is there was a lot of people who were coming over from other countries, and weren't Iraqis that were fighting. Those people were, they were coming in and they were getting paid to fight us. And I remember one of the people that squirted out the back, I shot, and he was kind of, but he was taking fire from, I think, 3 different positions as he was running, and he had 6 holes in him. When I got up to him, still alive, and I looked at him, I was like, this is a fucking kid. He's probably 14 years old at best. With the interpreter come up, and I remember asking him, through the interpreter, like, what would your parents say that you're here? And he said that, well, they'd be proud of me. And it was just like, what the fuck? And I remember, this is something I wrestled with for quite a bit since then, because, you understand, like, I'm the medic, and my job is to be the medic no matter what. And it was just like, watching, luckily none of the guys in second squad died. They all survived. They had some burns and stuff like that. But watching that happen, and everything else in the 5 minutes leading up to that, and it was, wasn't the best thing to do, but I looked at the kid and I was like, I turned around and walked off. I was like, all right, you fucking chose your path. That's it. And we had a PA with us, and he worked on him. And the kid survived, but it was just like that real apathy. Like, all right, this is war, and you're the fucking bad guy. And like, it was my job to work on him, and I just didn't.
Yeah. I mean, is it though? Like, that's part of your guys' responsibility, is to work on?
I worked on plenty of people who we shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, plenty. Every other one but him. And it was just that moment of like, I just.
Huh. Yeah. So with any of the other people that were, enemy fighters that you ended up working on, did you ever ask them similar things, or why they're here, or where they're from, or anything?
I got detached, and it was just like, I looked at it like a K-Prime lab. This is a skills lab, and if I can learn something or tune up my skills on this human body who's pumping blood out, that I don't really care about. If I can take something from that experience and give it to one of my guys tomorrow night, then I need to do the job. I had one guy that he got hit with. There was a little bird. He got hit with some of those rounds, and it splayed his testicle open. His scrotum was open, and he had the hole through his leg. And I took some shit for this, but his left testicle had uncoiled, and it's just like, fuck you, man. Like, they were vest makers, and I packed his wound with his own testicle, and he was yelling the whole time, asking for morphine and stuff. And I'm like, I've got two hits of it, and you're not getting either one of them because your boys are still out in the wood line out there, and getting in with our guys. And I like to think of myself as I've worked on my empathy, like since like I've really kind of done the meditation thing enough, and to look at these things in hindsight, and to realize though that in that environment, you really, after a while of it, night after night, every single night going out, and like your brother's about dying, and it's them and us, and it does something, for good, bad, or otherwise. In that environment, it's fuck them. Even if you want to maintain compassion and empathy and stuff like that, and know that this person directly is not really a threat anymore, it's an interesting thing, because in that environment, after those experiences, it's like, fuck you, dude. Pain is your problem. It's not my fucking problem.
Yeah.
You made your bed, and now you're gonna fucking lay in it.
Yeah.
So,
what was the kind of overall mission set on that one? Where the one that you're just talking about in terms of the guy's nuts getting, and if you could further elaborate, I'm curious, just so that I understand it right. When you said you packed, like he had other gunshot wounds.
So the decapitation was in the upper left thigh, right? So he kind of had a gaping hole there, and but it had ripped open his scrotum, and the testicle had uncoiled, right? And so it was there. I'm packing it in with packing the thigh wound with with the gauze, and I just kind of coiled the nut up and along with the gauze, and stuffed it in the hole. And I thought it was like still medically sound, It's like, what else are you gonna do with it? I'm not gonna clip it off. You got to do something with it, and to preserve it, maybe, I don't know.
So it was still connected.
Yeah, so like the testicles, like it's like coiled
I've
up.
never unwound a testicle.
Yeah,
before.
yeah, it was
Forgive
a really
my
interesting
ignorance.
thing. It's like oh man, like those like the kitchen machines that like you press it through and it like kind of swirlies the vegetable, where it's kind of coiled up, almost like a pigtail sort of thing, and like you stretch it out, and then
it's like a curly.
It's
fry.
like that with the testicle on coil like that. It's kind of wound up. So yeah, it was. I think I took some shit for that later from the CO. Like, you can't be doing that shit,
So I mean, clearly, like whoever worked on him after that was like, what the fuck?
Maybe, I don't know. I didn't.
Or maybe they were laughing. I
didn't get too hard of a phone call, but I don't know. I don't know what the proper, that's something we didn't learn, in the medic course. We didn't, so I was like, I did with what I could, but there was a lot of the places, and a lot of these things blurred together, because it was like, even after that op Simpson, we got called for a follow-on objective after that. So the same, like later that night, so we went back to, I think it was like Balad, and like got more ammo, and it was like washing the blood off of us, and we had another follow-up mission. There was nights we were doing 2 or 3 different hits, and so they really blurred together. A lot of them were vest makers, right, where we were going and hitting, and we would find the vests and the materials for making them and all of that when we'd hit the house. And it was a pretty regular ordeal where you'd have a couple people squirt, a couple people would hold their position, they'd get dead, and half of the time the squirters would get dead, and half the time they get reeled back in. But it was just that over and on repeat, man.
So that was the bulk of the deployment, was DAs on IED and vest maker type of operations in Tikrit.
The Samara Tikrit area. That was that was our kind of our AO in 06. And
was that first op that you talked about, Operation Simpson, was that the most busy or craziest gunfight that you remember from that, or were there any that were as bad or more so?
There was Yeah, that was probably the most complete version in my head of what a gunfight would look like, because it's kicked off with a vest, right? That started it. You have a belt fed, coming through the door. You've got the elements of small arms fire, the grenades. It was a complete enough thing where there was, like, it's like, that's okay. When you think about like in a movie or something like that growing up, like that's the kind of complete package of they're shooting at us, we're shooting at them, yeah. Grenades, bombs, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Other ones, there was we just kind of overpowered people with our numbers and our violence. So it didn't when things kicked up, it didn't last very long.
Yeah.
You have 36 Rangers coming in. It's like, this is going to be over quick.
Yeah.
And that was like the most fight that we had really put back against us was 10 guys. Because usually, it was 2, 3, 4 guys where you go in and, we had times when I remember going into a room as a 2-man, and guys was in the corner and his AK-47 had jammed, and it was fucking right. Like, when we saw it later that the round, I don't know if he fucking loaded it backwards or whatever, but it was jammed, and he went to pull a grenade, and my buddy Mort he tapped him twice, and like he went down with a grenade in his hand, and then there was a secondary gunfight going on in the kitchen that was in a bedroom, but it's like, here's 3 or 4 people who are putting up opposition against
36 fucking dudes.
Yeah, who at that time were really tuned up, and they're doing this every fucking night. So it was usually over pretty quick. Whenever there was people who were going to put up any kind of opposition, it was fucking over quick.
Yeah. With 36 dudes doing DAs and shit like that, did you ever have instances of blue on blue where rounds are going through walls and almost hitting each other?
No.
You were pretty solid on the deconflict that way?
Yeah. Well, you have half of those guys are set up, to catch squirters. So you usually have two of the squads.
Yeah.
So it's not like 30 dudes hitting a house. It's more like half of that number actually hitting, and the other ones are working on containment, and you rotate nightly. If
you could, you mentioned like a movie. Is there a operation that you remember vividly enough to set up and almost walk through like it's a fucking screenplay that you could kind of describe that really exemplifies the type of mission that you were doing on that? The one thing I know that all you fuckers listening out there love the details on actions on like that. So if there's one that you could pick that you set it up that way, that would be fantastic. Also, is there if there is any fucking canine stories from that deployment?
So the night with the guy with the testicle, that night. We were using a dog, and the dog's name was Wudan. The dog was fucking incredible. The dog was the most violent one out of all of us.
Go figure.
We love that dog, man. And
Wudan?
Yeah.
Wudan. That's cool.
It was a Belgian Malinois, and it was some of the most interesting wounds that I've seen were from those dog bites, the way the tendons stretch and get pulled out. But yeah, it was. I'm like, it's that line of like, okay, what?
There is no line here on Mic Drop. You cross. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
You can fucking trampoline over that fucking line.
Yeah. So like, again, I like, war becomes you, when you're engaged in it, and you're there to do a job, and that job is violence, and it's very difficult and not even necessary to do violence softly. Yeah. If you do it right, it's hard and it's fucking mean, Yeah. And so that night there was, I want to say, around a half a dozen people who squirted out of that building where they were making vests, and there was 2 guys that were in a I want to say it was a fig orchard. One of whom got hit by the little bird. The other one we found and roughed up and then brought back into the house. I worked on the guy's testicle, and then they were still looking for 4 other people. And I went with one of those teams, and we were walking through these orchards and everything, and we had some visibility from above, but it was incomplete. And we found another one of the guys and let the, he wasn't coming out of his hole. So we let the dog on him, and Woodan did his job, earned his, earned his biscuits that night, and pulled the guy out from his bicep and detached the bicep, pretty good. There's some good holes there.
Was the guy screaming when he got
it was like I'll never forget that blood, like blood curdling, like absolutely like terrifying. Like he knew he was fucking, I'm done. Like if he could have used his arm, he would have tapped out. But I mean, that dog was on him. And it was kind of that, like, as we were walking around for probably 2 hours in the muck and in the cold and everything, looking for this guy. And it was just like, fuck you for making us look for you, And so I remember putting my thumb in his armhole as kind of a joystick to walk him back, so that he wouldn't run off again. I'm like, I don't want to be chasing you through fucking dawn.